Have you ever had that unsettling feeling in the pit of your stomach? Like something just isn't right, but you can't pinpoint what it is? That nagging sense that there's something wrong in your relationships, something hiding just beneath the surface. It could be the subtle influence of a person who, whether they realize it or not, is manipulating your emotions and controlling your thoughts. Someone operating from the unconscious. This is exactly what Carl Jung warned us about. People who live through their unconscious forces, pulling those around them into their emotional web without them ever realizing it. These types of individuals often don't show their true selves on the surface. They may appear kind, controlled, even perfect, but they are dangerous, not because of overt aggression, but because of their hidden psychological manipulation. They operate without awareness, and the worst part is, you might not even realize they're doing it until you've been caught in their grip for far too long. Let's begin with one of the most subtle yet dangerous of these types, the unconscious manipulator. These individuals do not invade your life with aggression. They don't need to yell or fight. Instead, they slip in through the cracks of your empathy. Their actions are not violent but insidious, slowly seeping into your emotions, controlling your thoughts, and ultimately shaping your perception of reality without you even realizing it. The unconscious manipulator can make you feel things that aren't yours to feel. You'll find yourself experiencing emotions that seem disconnected from your own experiences, but you can't quite figure out why. You might feel guilt when you haven't done anything wrong, or confusion when everything seemed perfectly fine just moments ago. The manipulator is skilled at triggering these emotions through their unconscious behavior, drawing you into their emotional world. And once you're there, it becomes harder to differentiate between what's truly yours and what's been induced by them. The key to defending yourself against this type of person is developing an acute awareness of your own emotions. Ask yourself this: are these my feelings, or am I being influenced by someone else's unresolved issues? Recognize the patterns that emerge when you interact with them. Does something always feel off after spending time with them? Identifying these emotional hijackings is the first step in reclaiming your emotional autonomy. Next, we encounter a personality that is much more common than we realize: the bearer of the persona. This individual is often the one who seems to have everything together, the life of the party, the one who is always on, always wearing that perfect smile. But Jung warned that this persona, this public mask we all wear to navigate the world, can become a dangerous prison when someone becomes so identified with it that they lose sight of their true self. The persona is not inherently bad. We all use it. It's the mask we wear to meet societal expectations, to be a teacher, a student, a friend, or even just a colleague. But the real problem arises when we become so attached to this mask that we believe it's who we are. The bearer of the persona is someone who doesn't just wear the mask, they live through it. They are constantly performing, saying the right things, acting the right way, and suppressing all parts of themselves that don't fit this image of perfection. Jung believed that the bearer of the persona risks becoming disconnected from their true self. The spontaneous, vulnerable, and authentic parts of their personality that are locked away. They become a mere reflection of society's expectations, unable to feel or express anything outside of this socially acceptable role. And as they retreat further into this constructed identity, they begin to project their perfect image onto everyone else, expecting those around them to conform to the same rigid, superficial standards. Living with someone like this can feel emotionally draining. You may notice that your interactions with them lack authenticity, depth, and real connection. It's as if there's always a barrier between who they truly are and who they pretend to be. And if you express something outside of their perfect narrative, whether it's an intense emotion or a personal opinion, they retreat, becoming uncomfortable or shutting down completely. Now, let's move on to one of the most powerful and dangerous forces within us all, the repressed shadow. Jung taught us that everyone has a shadow, the parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or repress because they don't fit into our ideal self-image. But here's the thing, the shadow never stays hidden. It doesn't disappear. Instead, it grows stronger in the unconscious, waiting for an opportunity to emerge, often in explosive and destructive ways. The owner of the repressed shadow is someone who refuses to acknowledge their darker side. They may seem like the model of discipline, kindness, or moral superiority, but underneath that calm exterior, there's a force waiting to break free. When they react to seemingly small things with disproportionate anger, resentment, or bitterness, it's not because of the present moment. It's because their repressed emotions have festered in their unconscious, building up until they explode. Living with someone like this is emotionally exhausting. You never know when they'll lash out, when their hidden anger or sorrow will come to the surface. And worse, they often don't even recognize their own emotional eruptions. They justify them, rationalize them, and push the blame onto others. Jung believed that the more we repress, the stronger the shadow becomes. And when we don't integrate the shadow, it takes control of us, shaping our actions and reactions without us even realizing it. The more someone represses their shadow, the more dangerous their emotional outbursts become. They may seem calm, polite, and controlled on the surface, but inside, they are an emotional ticking time bomb. Now, we encounter a different, but equally insidious type, the moral controller. This person presents themselves as the embodiment of righteousness and virtue. They act as though they hold the moral high ground, guiding others through their own narrow, often rigid sense of what's right. At first, this might seem harmless, maybe even admirable. They present themselves as someone driven by ethical standards, someone you can look up to. But Jung warned that when someone uses their morality as a mask, it can become a form of psychic repression, both for themselves and for those around them. The moral controller represses their own desires, emotions, and contradictions under the guise of moral superiority, projecting these repressed aspects onto others. They judge, criticize, and condemn those who do not fit their strict moral code. And what's more dangerous is that they truly believe they are doing good by imposing their morality on others. To them, they are helping, correcting, or even saving the people they criticize. Jung believed that this projection of the shadow onto others, by labeling them as immoral, sinful, or wrong, was one of the most dangerous forms of repression. When someone lives by this kind of moral righteousness, they are avoiding a confrontation with their own hidden, darker impulses. Instead of acknowledging their own flaws, they project them outward, making others feel guilty or unworthy for their own humanity. Living with a moral controller means constantly feeling watched, judged, and criticized. Even when you do nothing wrong, their gaze will make you feel as though you failed in some way. And the worst part, over time, you might begin to internalize this judgment. You start policing your own behavior, suppressing parts of yourself just to avoid their moral condemnation. Jung taught that this extreme moralism is one of the greatest barriers to individuation, the path towards self-awareness and psychological wholeness. The moral controller's rigid ideals create a prison of guilt and shame that stifles authentic growth and self-expression. This kind of repression not only harms the individual, but poisons relationships, forcing others to live up to an impossible ideal, while all the while, the controller's own shadow grows more powerful in their unconscious mind. Next, we meet the complex individual, a person whose emotional life is dominated by unresolved traumas and unconscious complexes. These are people whose behavior is not guided by reason, but by deep-seated emotional wounds they cannot see. Imagine living with someone who, on one hand, is sweet, kind, and affectionate, but on the other hand, can suddenly turn cold, angry, or even explosive over seemingly trivial matters. This emotional volatility is not a random occurrence. It is driven by unconscious psychic wounds that have never been properly integrated. The complex individual may not even be aware that their reactions are being triggered by past hurts. They might react with intense anger, jealousy, sadness, or fear in situations that should be emotionally neutral, but they don't realize it. It's like they're reliving the past in the present, reacting to old emotions as if they're happening right now. Jung described these complexes as autonomous nuclei of emotional energy that live within our unconscious, often stemming from early childhood experiences or significant life events. These complexes can take control of us without warning, leading us to act in ways that are completely disconnected from the present moment. You might feel like you're walking on eggshells, never sure when the next emotional explosion is coming. The most confusing part of living with a complex individual is that their behavior is intermittent. One moment, they might be loving and affectionate. The next, they may turn into someone you don't recognize, consumed by overwhelming emotional reactions. These shifts can make it hard to understand them, and often you'll find yourself trying to manage the emotional chaos just to restore some form of peace. But here's the brutal truth. This emotional instability is not about you. It's not a reflection of your actions, but rather a manifestation of their unresolved psychological conflicts. The more you try to help or placate them, the more you feed into their emotional turbulence. Now, let's explore the most insidious of all, the psychic vampire. This person doesn't attack with obvious aggression or hostility. They don't explode in anger or demand your attention with loud demands. Instead, they quietly drain you, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. The psychic vampire doesn't need violence to control you. They feed on your energy in the most subtle, insidious ways. You might think you're helping them by listening to their problems, being there for them emotionally, or giving them support, but slowly, bit by bit, they wear you down. They are the masters of emotional dependency, always needing you to be available for them, to fix their problems, to hold them when they're feeling down. They present themselves as helpless or needy, but the truth is, they are not looking for help. They are simply looking to siphon your emotional energy. At first, this might seem innocent enough. You might even feel good about being there for them. But over time, you'll notice that your own vitality is being drained. You'll feel exhausted, emotionally depleted, and questioning whether you're giving too much of yourself. And the more you give, the more they demand, until you no longer recognize yourself. The psychic vampire operates on a subtle level. They don't need to be obvious in their demands. They manipulate your emotions into making you feel guilty for needing space, for wanting time for yourself, for simply being away from them. And eventually, you'll start to feel like their needs are your responsibility. You'll begin to lose touch with your own boundaries, your own needs, and everything that makes you who you are. Jung believed that symbiotic relationships, where two people become emotionally interdependent, to the point of losing their individuality are some of the greatest obstacles to psychic growth. The psychic vampire thrives in these kinds of relationships, and they can take over your life without you even realizing it. The dangerous individuals we've discussed, the unconscious manipulator, the bearer of the persona, the owner of the repressed shadow, the moral controller, the complexed individual, and the psychic vampire, are all driven by unconscious forces. These people operate from a place of emotional confusion, repression, and projection. And the more we interact with them, the more we risk losing ourselves in their unconscious drama. But here's the thing, we are not helpless. Once we understand these patterns, we gain the power to take control of our own lives. The first step is recognizing when we are dealing with these types of people. The second step is setting boundaries, emotionally and psychologically, so that we don't fall prey to their manipulations. Jung believed that the key to psychological health lies in self-awareness and self-integration. The process of individuation is all about becoming conscious of the unconscious, recognizing the hidden forces within ourselves and integrating them into our conscious experience. Only by acknowledging and accepting our shadow, our repressed desires, and our unconscious impulses can we truly begin to live authentically. But this process isn't just about recognizing the unconscious forces in others. It's about seeing them in ourselves as well. Jung warned that the more we project our unconscious traits onto others, the more we remain trapped in a cycle of denial and projection. That's why self-awareness is so crucial. The question isn't whether you've encountered these types of people. It's whether you have ever displayed these patterns yourself. Have you ever manipulated someone unconsciously? Have you ever worn a mask, projecting an image that isn't really you? Have you ever repressed your emotions, only to have them explode later? The journey to freedom starts with self-awareness, looking within, understanding our own unconscious patterns, and taking responsibility for them. The more we integrate these aspects of ourselves, the more we become whole. And the more we become whole, the less power these dangerous forces, both within and outside of us, have over our lives. Now, you may be thinking, how do I break free from these unconscious dynamics? It begins with a simple but powerful concept: awareness. The more aware you are of your emotions, your actions, and your motivations, the less influence these unconscious forces have over you. It's essential to take time for deep self-reflection, journaling, meditating, and seeking out practices that encourage mindfulness. Jung himself was an advocate of this kind of introspective work. He believed that the unconscious could only be understood when we bring it into the light of our conscious awareness. This doesn't mean that we will suddenly become perfect or immune to unconscious behaviors, but it does mean that we can start recognizing these patterns before they take control. Boundaries are also critical in dealing with these dangerous personalities. Once you recognize when someone is projecting their unconscious shadow onto you or manipulating your emotions, you need to set clear emotional and psychological boundaries. You don't have to engage in their drama. You don't have to absorb their negative energy. Protect your peace. And remember that it is okay to say no to people who are trying to drain you or control you. As we continue this journey of self-awareness, we must also prioritize personal growth and individuation. The process of individuation, as Jung described, is the path to becoming who we truly are. Not the roles we play, not the personas we project, but the authentic self beneath it all. Individuation is not just a psychological process. It's a spiritual one as well. It's about reconnecting with our true essence and shedding the layers of conditioning that have kept us trapped. When we embrace our own darkness, The shadow, the fears, the insecurities. We no longer have to project them onto others. And in doing so, we begin to live more freely, more authentically. This is not a quick fix, nor is it an easy path. It takes dedication, honesty, and the courage to face the parts of ourselves we would rather avoid. But it is the only way to break free from the unconscious forces that control us, and to create a life that is truly our own. What Jung teaches us is that no one is beyond redemption. We all have the potential for growth and transformation. The more we understand the unconscious forces at play, both within us and others, the more empowered we become to make conscious choices. You may not be able to control the behavior of others, but you can control how you react to them. By becoming aware of their unconscious dynamics, you can protect yourself and make sure that you're not sucked into their drama. You have the power to break free from unhealthy relationships and start building a life that is rooted in authenticity and self-awareness. The path to freedom is a lifelong journey. It requires vigilance, dedication, and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves and others. But once you embark on this path, you will begin to feel a profound sense of inner peace. You will no longer be a victim of unconscious forces. Instead, you will be the conscious creator of your own life, capable of choosing your own destiny. As we journey deeper into the process of individuation and self-discovery, we must come to terms with one fundamental truth. We are not perfect. We all have parts of ourselves we try to hide or repress. We have fears, desires, and weaknesses that we may not want to acknowledge. But Jung taught us that the path to wholeness, to truly knowing ourselves, requires embracing all parts of ourselves. The shadow is not just the negative aspects. It also holds the potential for creativity, strength, and vitality that we may have never recognized. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that being good means suppressing our shadow. But in reality, the more we deny it, the stronger and more destructive it becomes. Integration, the process of bringing the unconscious into the light, is not about eradicating our shadow. It's about acknowledging it, understanding it, and allowing it to transform into something positive. Living authentically means recognizing both the light and the darkness within us. We must stop hiding behind masks and be willing to face the parts of ourselves that make us uncomfortable. It's in this confrontation that true growth happens. As we continue to explore and integrate our unconscious selves, we'll begin to notice a profound shift in our relationships and in our perception of the world. We'll no longer be controlled by the unconscious forces of fear, guilt, or shame. Instead, we'll be able to act from a place of wholeness and clarity. And when we do, we'll no longer attract or fall victim to the 6 dangerous types of people we've discussed. While personal growth and individuation are lifelong journeys, there are still practical steps you can take to protect yourself from the unconscious manipulators in your life. Self-awareness and boundaries are your first defense, but here are a few more strategies to keep in mind. The more you understand your own emotional landscape, the easier it becomes to identify when someone is trying to manipulate your feelings. This emotional autonomy allows you to recognize that you don't have to absorb the energy of others, no matter how intense it may feel. By recognizing your emotions as your own, you can maintain control and avoid being drawn into someone else's drama. Setting clear boundaries is vital in protecting your emotional well-being. This is not about building walls, but about creating a healthy space between you and those who drain or manipulate your energy. Whether it's saying no to someone's demands or stepping back from toxic relationships, boundaries protect your peace. Seek out people who encourage your growth, support your authenticity, and understand the importance of emotional independence. You don't need to be surrounded by people who are unconscious of their own shadows. Cultivate relationships where mutual respect, self-awareness, and emotional honesty are valued. The more attention you give to drama or manipulation, the more you empower it. Don't engage in the power struggle. Step away from toxic conversations or interactions that fuel negativity. Recognize when it's time to leave, walk away, or redirect the conversation to something more productive. We all have shadows. By engaging in self-reflection and healing our own emotional wounds, we make ourselves less vulnerable to manipulation or unconscious dynamics. Take time to confront your own fears, desires, and repressed emotions. Consider practices like journaling, therapy, meditation, or spiritual practices that support emotional and psychological healing. One of the most liberating aspects of Jung's work is the idea that true freedom comes from within. By confronting our own unconscious forces, we can reclaim our power and stop projecting our insecurities and shadows onto others. This is the true essence of individuation. Becoming whole, becoming authentic, and creating a life of meaning and purpose that is no longer controlled by fear or unconscious forces. But this requires immense courage. It's not easy to face the darker parts of ourselves, to acknowledge the areas where we have been hurt, where we've been dishonest, or where we've repressed our own desires. But it's in this process of courageously stepping into the light that we find true psychological freedom. We stop being puppets to our unconscious and instead become the conscious creators of our own lives. Remember, individuation is not something that happens overnight. It's a lifelong journey that requires constant self-reflection, learning, and growth. But as you continue on this path, you will begin to notice a profound shift in the way you experience yourself and others. You will stop attracting unconscious relationships and instead start drawing in genuine connections that nourish and support your journey toward wholeness. And perhaps, most importantly, you will be able to live in the present moment, no longer held back by the ghosts of the past or the fears of the future. The more you embrace your true self, the more you realize that you are enough, just as you are. The process of becoming who you really are is about letting go of the masks, the personas, and the unconscious forces that have controlled you for so long. Now, I want to leave you with this question. What parts of yourself have you been hiding? What shadows have you repressed? And how much of your life has been shaped by unconscious forces that you haven't yet fully acknowledged? The journey towards self-awareness starts with honesty, the willingness to look at yourself without judgment and recognize that you have the power to change your life. In the comments below, share your thoughts. Reflect on your journey and how these unconscious dynamics have played out in your life. Are there any patterns that resonate with you? Have you encountered these types of people, or even seen some of these traits in yourself? And don't forget to subscribe for more insights into Carl Jung's teachings and how they can help you lead a life of authenticity and freedom. Remember, the more light we shed on our unconscious, the less control it has over us. The power to change begins within.